Luke Shaw taking a dig at Martial and Rashford, saying they don't deserve to go back into the starting 11. McTominay reveals what Erik Ten Hag did after the Newcastle loss, which sort of bounced United back into a great game versus Chelsea. And of course, we'll be talking about 5 things we learned from Manchester United 2, Chelsea 1. But let's dive into the news. Let's dive into the player comments. Let's dive into what was said post-match. And I think this comment by McTominay was very, very important. And we're going to get into that right now. So please do hit that like button and of course subscribe down below if you're new. So McTominay was asked what was key in terms of mentality he showed tonight. And McTominay just said, to be honest with you, the manager, the way he approached the game was with a lot of light training sessions to keep us fresh. Now, this is particularly interesting because we've had a lot of leaks since pre-season about Ten Hag potentially overworking the players, how training's so intense and that could be contributing to the injuries, how the players feel they should be doing more tactical work instead of intense training. Pep Guardiola said that he doesn't really do intense training between matches because there's so many matches, he does more tactical work with lighter sessions. And sort of there's a lot of leaks in that the players sort of felt that the session should be a little bit lighter so they could do a bit more tactical work, understand his tactics more, because if they're doing intense training and playing twice a week, it gets in the legs, it gets in the energy. And I think, you know, the players have a right with that. You know me, I'm not a big fan of leaks. I always protect manager over the players. I think that was a fair leak to the extent of we saw how many games were in pre-season. We see how intense Ten Hag works them, but sometimes because of the workload of the Premier League, sometimes you need to just make training lighter and focus on the tactical side of things, especially when we're getting all these sort of non-contact muscular injuries. It's a sort of sign of workload. McTominay also spoke about being 3 points behind Man United are also 3 points behind Man City, which is really interesting right now, and we're going to discuss that in tonight's live stream. But McTominay said a few things after the game. Ten Hag said a few things after the game, which I think was just some interesting points. He said that we started well and that the fans reacted well after a dismal display at Newcastle. But McTominay mentioned that the players were really upset about the Newcastle game, and I think you can tell Luke Shaw was, because we're going to get into what he's liked about Rashford and Martial in a second. And then Ten Hag says, when you don't bring it in this league, you get killed. If you don't bring it on Saturday, we'll get killed. And Ten Hag makes a comment post-match saying you've got to bring it. And we didn't bring it versus Newcastle. We didn't try. We didn't put the effort in. Ten Hag is saying we brought it. We put the effort in today. And that was the big point he's making. And Ten Hag said, I don't care about the noise. The players are used to it. It was the same at Ajax, but it's a smaller country, so less people. There's going to be more noise around United and negativity, but he doesn't care about the noise. He doesn't care about the negativity. He's going to focus on him, which is what I like. And Ten Hag said this, when you're not on top form on the day you get beaten, you need to be at your best. When you're not at your best, you get killed. We know that we need the right attitude every game. And today we got the right attitude. Will we get the right attitude versus Bournemouth? I don't know. I can't just say because this was a convincing win, this was a good win, and they showed the right attitude that these players are going to show the right attitude versus Bournemouth. I know the squad is inconsistent, but if this could be the start something to build off, that'd be great. But talking of interesting things, Luke Shaw liked a tweet where Patrice Evra says, it'll be tough for Marcus Rashford and Antony Martial to get back in the starting 11 after their dismal display versus Newcastle. And it's interesting that Luke Shaw's liking that. And I know from people, when we know from leaks, that Luke Shaw, Bruno, Maguire and Varane, which is a surprising one, are the 4 players getting really angry at other players in the dressing room for turning on the manager and not trying. Luke Shaw, Bruno, Maguire and Varane are those 4 players really trying to rally the dressing room together, get the people behind Ten Hag. So it's interesting that Luke Shaw has liked this tweet. Luke Shaw also liked other tweets backing Ten Hag publicly. He clearly wants the manager and he clearly wants the manager to succeed, and he's clearly frustrated with the lack of effort from Martial and Rashford as well. Now, obviously, he'll probably come out and say that was a mistake. He didn't like that, but yeah. Now I want to dive into 5 things we learned from the game. 5 things we learned in the 2-1 win versus Chelsea. And the first thing we learned, before I even talk about how good Garnacho was, is generally that United played well. United deserved to win. We moved the ball. We could have won that game 3-4-0. I think our XG was like 4.7 to their 1.15. We were dominant. This was the best performance of the season. It was absolutely fantastic. And someone I want to give credit to going into the first thing we learned was Garnacho. I think he's been brilliant these last few games. I love how he pretty much almost always beats his man. He almost always gets a shot on target. His electric energy, his pace, his work rate. He was linking up with Bruno well. Bruno was switching the ball into him. He was receiving the ball, taking a nice touch, dribbling at players. The Reece James really struggled. Garnacho got past him quite a few times. Garnacho was fast. He's energetic. He worked hard. He never gave up. He's got 2 goals and an assist in his last 4 games. He's only 18, 19 years of age. And, I'm a big Marcus Rashford backer, but he's just not deserved to start over Garnacho because Garnacho's been so electric. He's been so quick. And I think what I like about Garnacho is he gives a damn. And when he gets the ball, he tries to make things happen. He gets a shot. He gets past his man. And I think that's a winger for me. If we even talk about the assist he got on McTominay putting in that delivery, that is a winger for me. And that's what I want to see from my winger. So big shout out to Garnacho. The second thing is more of a constructive point. Yes, we had an XG of about 4.8, but I think we had a XG against of like 1.5. We did concede some silly chances, and Nana had to make a few changes. And there was times where it was quite easy for Chelsea to play through us because the way we set up, there are still sort of large spaces being left, and certain players have to defend large spaces. And I think the Lindelof was particularly poor. Sometimes I think that we are quite vulnerable, and I do think going to Anfield, Liverpool with the likes of Darwin Núñez and Szoboszlai and Salah could really exploit that. And we've got to watch out for that. But I will say this, looking at that game, Amadou Onana and Todibo, I see why United want to sign those two players. Todibo's a centre-back that's very comfortable defending wide spaces and large spaces, and he's good on the ball. I would take Lindelof out. I'd bring in Todibo in January. But also someone like Amadou Onana who could partner in Amrabat, could partner in Maino, someone that's very comfortable at covering large spaces, because the way we played it is quite a lot of ground to cover, which I don't think we're doing the best at covering that as well. Which brings me into my third point, and I think Amrabat could have been man of the match. I saw Sky Sports give Lindelof a 7 out of 10 and Amrabat a 5 out of 10. I thought that was nuts, absolutely nuts. I thought Amrabat was really good. He didn't have to be man of the match. He was playing against 200 million midfielders and they didn't have a sniff. We controlled the midfield. He recovered the ball 11 times. He won 5 out of 7 duels. He made 3 tackles. I think he had 92% pass accuracy and like 50 passes as well. He was good on the ball. I thought he was really brilliant. And I've always said, look, we should have signed Amrabat. I was a big fan of when we signed Amrabat, and then he hasn't really hit the ground running. Not totally his fault because he didn't really get the opportunities, but he came injured. He missed pre-season. He's got to get used to a new league without pre-season, getting a few minutes here and there, being played out of position. And all of a sudden, he's just had 2 or 3 games where he's played quite a few minutes in a row, where actually he's sort of really, I don't know what the word is, but starting to get some running in his legs and sort of warming up. I think he's 80%. I don't even think he's 100%, but I think at the start of the season he was 50%. And he was really good today. Really, really good. Really impressive Amrabat. And as Amrabat said on Ten Hag, he's one of the best in the world. He's a fantastic coach. We're all behind him. I love Amrabat's positivity towards Erik Ten Hag and how they're so behind him and how he's such a good coach. And Amrabat did say post-match, like, I don't use this as an excuse, but it was a difficult start to me. I started pre-season with an injury. I now feel that I'm getting stronger and better and adapting to the Premier League. It's not been the easiest start for Amrabat, having to play out of position, being injured, missing pre-season, but today showed his quality, and I love that he's publicly again backing Ten Hag. Players like Amrabat, players like McTominay, who I criticise a lot, players like Maguire, players like Shaw, players like Bruno, players like Garnacho, they're visibly backing the manager, and I really like that because they're not getting infected by that toxicity of players that wanted Oli out and Ragnick out and everyone else out. And another player that's really impressed me is Antony. Now, Antony had a slow start to the season, partly because of the awful football playing doesn't suit him, partly because of the issues with his girlfriend. Antony's had a really slow start to the season, but these last 3 games he's been good. And Antony last season wasn't amazing, but I always felt last season we were a better team when Antony played right wing because his ability to stretch the width, he always got involved in the game. Even though it wasn't great last season. This season, I felt like Antony offered nothing at right wing, and he obviously then had a lot of games missed because of issues with his girlfriend. But he was really good again today. As you can see, his statistics: 4 dribbles, 2 out of 3 tackles, 1 key pass, 1 penalty, 1. He's getting the ball, and I think one of the reasons Antony looks so much better today is Antony's a system player. He thrived in the Ajax system when he had runners around him to do those quick 1-2s, players running around him in a positive, progressive attacking system. We've sort of played a bit more attacking football, more runners off the ball, more movement. Everyone was sort of following instructions, and Antony looked better, and that was a big part of that. And Ten Hag made an interesting comment on Antony, saying he's progressing as the team is progressing, but it is the attitude, what he needs, what he has to contribute to the team. He was very bright. He got in good positions on the ball. He also made good decisions in the stepping up. He's building on this. And I think Antony is gradually getting better and better and better. And hopefully and he's never going to be an 80 million signing, but hopefully he does sort of become the signing or the player that Ten Hag plans to use as well. But the 5th and final thing we learned is Hojlund needs service. He's only had 5 shots on target in the Premier League. And as Dewey said, 80 players have had more. And some people will say, but McTominay can find it, but Hojlund can't find the ball. And it's so different because centre-backs know how to mark the striker and keep the striker out of the game. Those box-crashing midfielders like Gundogan used to do and score a lot of goals, McTominay, they almost are more likely to have chances when they run into the box because they're less likely to have someone marking them, if that makes sense. And I think that Rasmus Hojlund does a lot off the ball. We presses, he holds up well. We've seen him score in the Champions League. I'm not worried about him in the slightest because we've seen his contributions in the Champions League, how good he can be. Also, he's only 20 years of age. People forget how young he is. But we need to get the ball to him more because, yes, we were creating chances, but we're not creating chances for our striker. And I think that's the frustrating thing. And I think Garnacho, when he put in that great cross to McTominay, I think, yes, Garnacho, do that more. That's what I want to see as well. And then just a bonus point I saw from Devil's DNA, and I think they made a great point here, was they've talked about how visible it was that Garnacho, Shaw, Delo and Hojlund all are enjoying playing this quick pass and move game a lot more than anything they have in the last few weeks. Always said that the gameplay suits the team a lot more than the long ball approach, and I agree. We're playing the long ball approach because I guess it suited Rashford and McTominay and Bruno. But at the end of the day, Garnacho, Shaw, Delo and Hojlund are the future. So is Bruno. And we should be playing for the future, not because, this game suits Rashford, who's been crap and not trying. We're going to play this way to try and help Rashford. No, we're going to play the way Ten Hag wants to play, that suits, the players that he brought in, which was Hojlund, the players that he favours, Delo and Shaw, and another player he sort of brought in Garnacho. Anyway, that was 5 things we learned. Smash a like, smash a subscribe. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye.